Hi, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all doing well. I hope this video finds you well. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today I'm going to be talking about the murder of 13-year-old Tristyn Bailey by 14-year-old Aiden Fucci. Before I get into that, just a reminder that I make true crime and occasionally commentary content. So if that's something you think you'd enjoy, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. And welcome our newest member, my cat that I thrifted. He does not have a name. She, he, they do not have a name. Let's get into the video. I don't typically cover cases that are currently in the news. I believe the last case I covered that was active was Vanessa Guillen about a year ago. But I have decided to start a sort of series or sub-series on my channel in a similar vein to, I guess, Stephanie Harlow's Coffee and Crime Time, where I talk about current cases that are active and that are being actively investigated. I think that when a case is currently unfolding in real time and you see publication in the media, there's a lot of misinformation that is spread around. So this series is sort of my way to try to combat that, I guess, and just give you as truthful of information as I possibly can. I may speculate in the videos, but when I am speculating, I will make it clear that I am. That being said, of course, I am human and I might get some information wrong, or there may be information that is brought forward in the future that contradicts information I've put in this video, but I will post updates and corrections and stuff like that if that happens. So today we'll be talking about the highly publicized and sensationalized case of the stabbing death of 13-year-old Tristyn Bailey by 14-year-old Aiden Fucci. That being said, this crime is extremely disturbing and upsetting due to the nature of the crime and the age of the victim. So I'm putting a sort of trigger warning here. If it's something you don't want to listen to, like crimes against children or abuse against children, please click off this video and take care of yourself. Tristyn Bailey, sometimes called Tree by family and friends, was born on January 18th, 2008 to parents Stacy and Forrest Bailey. She had 4 siblings, 3 of which were sisters: Brittany Bailey Russell, Alexis Bailey, and Sophia Bailey, and then she had 1 brother named Tegan Bailey. She was the youngest of her siblings, so she was the baby of her family. Her father, Forrest, said that he always dreamt of having a big family. He wanted a lot of children, between 4 to 6, with his future wife. So they were obviously more than happy to welcome Tristyn as their 5th child when they had her. There were 7 members of the Bailey family, so they called themselves the Bailey 7, and they still do to this day. Everyone who knew and loved Tristyn spoke highly of her and spoke about how she was extremely bubbly, outgoing, and friendly. Her mother, Stacy, said that she was the loudest and blondest baby in the nursery after she was born. Tristyn's mother, Stacy, was primarily a stay-at-home mom. She took care of all 5 of her children as they grew up, an often enormous and often thankless job. So she was maintaining and cleaning the household, raising the kids, stuff like that. Whereas Tristyn's father, Forrest, worked outside the home. I'm unclear of his job, but it seems something in the sort of business world, as he often was away on business trips. Tristyn's parents signed her up for various sports early on in her life, including swimming and lacrosse, both of which she eventually quit because she decided it just wasn't for her. She was really passionate about becoming a cheerleader, though her mom, Stacy, was initially hesitant to put her in the sport because she thought the hours were long and grueling. She had been a cheer coach before that, and she had a daughter. One of the older daughters was a cheerleader as well, so they knew you spent a lot of hours at the cheer gym, and she didn't necessarily want to make that commitment with Tristyn. But Tristyn was incredibly persistent. She began practicing her own stunts and tricks at home, including teaching herself how to do the splits, to prove how dedicated and much she wanted, or how much she wanted to be become a cheerleader. Stacy eventually recognized how committed Tristyn was to becoming a cheerleader and caved and signed Tristyn up for all-star cheerleading or competitive cheerleading. In the year leading up to her death, Tristyn started practicing or switched over to a new cheer gym in Jacksonville, Florida called Infinity All-Stars Cheerleading. On the team, according to her coach, she was a bass, a back spot, main tumbler, and a highlighted dancer. I have to confess that I know little about the sport of cheerleading, so I don't really 100% know what this means. I know there's flyers and tumblers, but like, her team for the 2020/2021 cheer season was comprised of young cheerleaders aged 9 to 13 years old. So Tristyn, being 13, was on the older side of the age group that she was in. Her coaches and various teammates said that she was often a big sister, or she took the big sister role for many of the younger cheerleaders in her team. She was always there to support them and cheer them on. She was a very dedicated teammate and cheerleader. Throughout the summer of 2020, Tristyn worked hard to master various different stunts and cheer tricks that would allow her to become a level, or to be on a level 3 team. As I said before, I know little about cheer, so I had to Google what this meant in relation to this sport, and I still might be wrong because it is just a Google search. But there are apparently different types of cheerleading, and outside of school, Tristyn was in all-star cheerleading, which means she sort of competes at different competitions statewide and stuff like that, national and state competitions if her team gets that far. I think there is at least 6 or 7 different levels within all-star cheerleading. Different websites said different things about how many levels there are, but essentially you have to master certain stunts and tricks to go on to a higher level team. If you know more about the sport, please feel free to kindly correct me below. So as I said, each level requires the cheerleader to master certain tricks in order to be placed in a team on that level. So in the summer of 2020, Tristyn was working on mastering her stunts and tricks that would allow her to be on a level 3 team, including being able to do a back tuck. With a lot of time spent at her cheer gym and a lot of hard work, Tristyn met her goal and was accepted onto a level 3 cheer team in the 2020-2021 cheer season. In the summer of 2020, Tristyn also spent a lot of time at her older sister Alexis's house, helping her take care of her pets. Alexis says that she owns a lot of pets, including a cat called Pino, who Tristyn helped nurse back to health after surgery. Tristyn was also on her cheer team at school, which was Patriot Oaks Academy, which was a public school located in St. John's, Florida, where Tristyn lived with her family. She was a co-captain on the cheer team with one of her best friends. This school, POA, serves children from pre-kindergarten to grade 8. In the 2020/2021 school year, Tristyn was in grade 7. She was aged 13 years old as of January 2021, which was her 13th birthday. According to teachers and her family, Tristyn was an honor student at her school, and during her grade 7 year was actually taking a high school course so she could get ahead in her academics. As a 13-year-old girl, Tristyn was said to love TikTok and Starbucks. Her preferred drinks were a double chocolate chip frappuccino and an iced caramel coffee, which her sister said she took black. So her interests seemed to align with a lot of her cohorts of her age in Western society. She was really well liked by her peers and her school's staff. Like, her teachers loved her. They said she was a really easy and friendly student. She would often carpool with her friends' moms or parents home from school, and during the car rides, she would act very friendly with the moms, giving them the daily tea, which was essentially she would relay the school gossip to whichever mom was driving her home and give her opinions on it. Later on in the evening, when she was with her mom, she would also give her mom the daily tea and give her the same stories and her opinions. So by By all accounts, Tristyn was a very outgoing and beloved 13-year-old with an extremely bright future ahead of her, but this was cut short when her life ended in May 2021. According to her family and police reports, Tristyn was last seen by them around midnight on the morning or late evening of May 8th/ May 9th, 2021. There is little information about the particulars of this last sighting or the last time her family saw her, but it really seems to me that Tristyn left her home around midnight or just before midnight to go to a friend's house and hang out with a group of her friends. She was last seen by her family wearing her white cheerleading skirt and a dark shirt. The information that has currently been released about this time period is extremely minimal, as the case is still active and ongoing, so there are certain details that investigators and prosecution are not going to release right away, so just bear with me. So at some point after she was last seen by her family and before 1:15 a.m. in the morning, she was known to be hanging out with at least 3 of her peers around her age, presumably classmates from her school, which was POA, including a 14-year-old boy named Aiden Fucci, who I'll get more into who he is later on. At 1:15 a.m., Tristyn was last reported being seen around Durban crossing North Amenity Center, which is a sort of space building clubhouse for residents of that community for them to have access to and just enjoy those amenities. Like, I think it has a pool and other stuff. Then around 1:45 a.m., a home security camera caught 2 individuals later identified to be Aiden Fucci and Tristyn Bailey walking east on Saddlestone Drive, which was identified as the neighboring neighborhood that Aiden Fucci lived in with his mom, and about a 20-minute walk away from the Amity Center that Tristyn was last spotted at. The arrest report would later describe the subject seen in this security footage as, quote, "One subject was wearing what appeared to be shorts and a light-colored hooded sweatshirt and white shoes with a black Nike logo. This was later identified to be Aiden Fucci. The second subject appeared to be wearing black pants and a black shirt. This was later identified to be Tristyn." From a press release that was held later on in May 2021, it seemed that multiple cameras like Ring doorbells and other similar security cameras caught Tristyn and Aiden walking along Saddlestone Drive later that day, and potentially other streets and areas altogether had caught Tristyn and Aiden walking together. By all accounts, neither teenager seemed to be in distress at that time, and they both seemed to be walking by their own free will. Of course, this can't be 100% verified because the footage is not going to be the best, and we don't know Tristyn's emotional state at that time, as she's not there to vouch for it. I have not been able to actually view the footage on Saddlestone because a lot of the footage and evidence has been sequestered, of course, for future trial, for Aiden's future trial, so it's not publicly available currently, so I can't really give my opinion on how I believe that Tristyn was acting during this time. Then, a bit under 2 hours later, around 3:27 a.m., the same security footage camera that initially caught Tristyn and Aiden walking together saw one person walking west down a Saddlestone Drive, so the opposite direction that they were initially caught walking in. The arrest warrant said, quote, "The video footage depicted only one subject wearing the shorts and the light-colored sweatshirt walking west on Saddlestone Drive. The subject walking west was carrying a pair of white shoes with a black Nike logo." Of course, this single subject was later identified to be Aiden Fucci. Tristyn's family back home started becoming concerned about her whereabouts when she never came back home from her midnight hangout the night before, early on the morning of May 9th, 2021, which was a Sunday and was tragically Mother's Day. She hadn't returned home as of yet, so around 10 a.m., one of Tristyn's immediate family members, though it's not specified which one of them called 911 to report Tristyn missing in St. Johns County. Thankfully, the St. Johns County Police Department Department took Tristyn's disappearance seriously right away, which sadly for a lot of cases, especially in POC cases, is not the case, but thankfully was the case in this case. Within the first hour that Tristyn was reported missing, St. Johns County Sheriff's Office posted a message on their Facebook informing the public that Tristyn Bailey, 13-year-old Tristyn Bailey, was a missing persons at this time, and to make a public plea for anyone who had information about her whereabouts to contact them or come forward with the information they had. Then around 2:30, the sheriff's office posted a similar tweet thread on Twitter, essentially relaying the same information that they had on Facebook, just to try to reach a broader audience to see if anyone had information. Then just before 5 p.m. that day, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement activated a missing child alert, which to my understanding is similar to an Amber Alert. In order for a missing child alert to be activated, 4 criteria need to be met. The 4 criteria are that 1, the child is under the age of 18, 2, law enforcement has a well-founded belief based on an active investigation that the child is in danger of death or serious bodily injury, 3, there is a detailed description or photograph of the child to broadcast to the public, and 4, the local law enforcement agency of jurisdiction recommends activation. So of course all 4 of these criteria were met, and it was a missing persons or missing child alert was activated in Tristyn's case. It is obvious to me that if this was activated, law enforcement that had jurisdiction over Tristyn's missing persons case was extremely worried about Tristyn's safety at this point, and they believed that she was either in extreme danger of becoming a victim of foul play or had already been victimized. After being contacted by the Bailey family that morning on May 9th, local police immediately dispatched officers to start searching for Tristyn in the area that she was last seen. Then a community search began around 4 p.m. on May 9th after they gathered as a group at Veterans Park, which is an outdoor public park / recreation area that is a couple miles away from Saddlestone Drive, where Tristyn was last caught on surveillance footage. Unfortunately, at 6 p.m., a body was discovered, quote, in the woods at the south end of a retention pond east of the cul-de-sac on Saddlestone by a man searching his neighborhood. Later reports say this man had been going on his evening walk and happened upon Tristyn's body. Her body was just beside the pond, not actually in the pond, and this area was only 0.3 miles from where Aiden Fucci lived with his mother. A cursory identification was done, and the police hesitantly determined that the body that was found was indeed Tristyn Bailey. She had obvious trauma to her face and body, but was fully clothed when she was found. After this discovery, the St. Johns County Police called off the search for Tristyn at 7 p.m. and then announced that the body had been found near a retention pond, or that the body that was found near the retention pond was indeed Tristyn. The police clarified in this public announcement that there was no present danger to the community, meaning that the killer wasn't on the loose and wasn't on a sort of killing spree, and they may have had the suspect already in custody at this point, which was found to be later true. They already had Aiden Fucci in their custody.
First of all, good evening. And this was not the outcome the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office wanted, or this community. However, we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to reiterate this numerous times after this press conference, during this press conference. I asked you to give respect to this community and give respect to the family. This morning, at approximately 10 o'clock this morning, the St. Johns County was notified by the family of Tristyn Bailey that she was reported missing this morning at 10 o'clock this morning. 13 years old, white female. They gave a glowing description. The family last saw her last night at approximately midnight, and at that time, the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office in this community went to work this morning. This was an exhausting search by the neighborhood, by the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. We have located a body that is preliminarily identified as Tristyn Bailey. Again, it's in the early stages, but we will verify that through the process. I will tell you this again, we've notified the St. Johns County School District. This is a grieving community, and we're going to respect that grieving community. And I ask you that you put this out there and you help us stand behind this community and let them grieve together. Anything I'm missing back here? This is the early stages of a very, very complex investigation. And with that being said, of course, again, we're going to give the respect to our investigations unit, Director Skip Cole and the CID unit, to go ahead and do their job from this point forward.
Early on May 9th, Aiden Fucci was quickly identified as being the person that was seen with Tristyn in the surveillance footage on Saddlestone Drive. So police went to his home quickly after this surveillance footage was given to them. This is where he lived. They went to his home where he lived with his mother, Crystal Smith. After briefly speaking with the police, Aiden volunteered to ride with an officer to show them the area where he last saw Tristyn alive. Aiden Fucci was then taken from his home voluntarily and transported to the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office and placed in an interview room within the building to be questioned by investigators on Tristyn's case. This was just before 1 p.m. on May 9th, 2021, hours before Tristyn's body was found. Before I continue with the happenings of this case, I'm going to take a brief aside, a necessary aside, to explain the information that is public about Aiden Fucci at this point. So Aiden Sean Fucci was born on November 6, 2006 to parents Jason Fucci and Crystal Smith in Jacksonville, Florida. Currently, little is publicly known about Aiden's childhood and his home life, but various news publications have discovered that Aiden's father, Jason, has a pretty lengthy criminal record. In 2003, when Jason Fucci was only 19 years old, he was born on August 9th, 1984. He was charged with lewd and lascivious battery and child violence. He apparently had sex, sort of a statutory rape. As you know, a child can't consent to sexual relations with an adult, so I'm not going to say this is consensual sex. So he had sex with a 15-year-old that he was living with at the time. He was sentenced to only 2 years probation for his crime, and while on probation, he violated the terms of his probation and was sentenced to 14 months in jail. He had even more run-ins with the law over the next decade, many of which aren't really applicable or worth mentioning to this case, except for one other only notable offense, in my opinion, occurred in 2016. He reportedly got into a physical altercation with someone at a gas station and was arrested for battery for this incident. The report said that Jason's son was present during the assault. It is not specified in the arrest report or in his crime report if the son that was present was indeed Aiden Fucci, but it is possible that Aiden was present at this, and he would have been around 9 years old at this time. For this offense, Jason Fucci was sentenced to 6 months probation and ordered to attend anger management classes. Other than that information about his father's crime, little information is public about Aiden and his parents, though it does seem that his parents split up early on in his life and that Aiden primarily lives with his mom in St. Johns County, Florida. It is known that Aiden Fucci attended the same school as Tristyn, which was Patriot Oaks Academy, though it hasn't been publicly released what grade he is in and whether or not he was in the same class as Tristyn at that time. I would assume, based on just solely his age, that he would probably be in grade 8, but who knows for sure. There's a variety of factors that could affect his grade. Maybe he was held back in grade 7, who knows? It's not publicly available yet. The nature of the relationship between Aiden and Tristyn is also not publicly known and hasn't been released. Of course, police do have information about this at this time and testimony from other classmates, but it's not public currently. There has been a lot of speculation that there could be a possible romantic link between Aiden Fucci and Tristyn, though it is still too early to tell how valid these speculations are. So back to May 9th and into the interrogation room with Aiden Fucci. The contents or transcript of this police interview have not been made public, of course, course, because it hasn't gone to trial yet, but authorities have released that Aiden made multiple admissions in the arrest report, which has been made public. At one point during the interrogation or police interview, Aiden was left alone with both of his parents, so both Crystal and Jason were present, though their conversation was obviously being audio recorded and I believe visually recorded as well. His parents then asked him if there was, quote, anything that would be on his clothes from the previous night. Aiden replied that he had been wearing blue jeans the previous night. Then his mom, Crystal, asked him if he was, quote, sure there was nothing on him. Aiden responded, quote, I think so, why? And then Crystal responded, just blood. His mother also asked him why he was seen on the surveillance footage carrying his shoes on his way back, walking west on Saddlestone Drive. Aiden replied that he had taken his shoes off because his feet hurt. It had been noted by police and investigators that had been present with Aiden when interviewing him that Aiden changed his story with Tristyn, or that night with Tristyn, multiple times, or at least once, and eventually evoked his constitutional right. Presumably he pleaded the fifth, which means he had right to be silent. He did admit that he had left a mutual friend's house with Tristyn around 1:10 a.m. on May 9th. In the arrest report, it also stated that Aiden admitted to, quote, engaging in an argument with Tristyn in which he forcefully pushed her to the ground, striking her head. But this is all that I could really find about Aiden's conversation or interview with police presently. Investigators then were able to obtain a search warrant for Aiden's mother's house, Crystal's house, based on evidence they had currently against him. It is located on a residential street that is directly connected to Saddlestone Drive, where they found a lot of circumstantial evidence that corroborated the theory that Aiden had indeed murdered Tristyn Bailey. They found the Nike shoes that Aiden was seen carrying on surveillance footage and other clothing items, one of which I believe was a t-shirt. These were tested forensically and were positive for the presence of blood. The following day, on Monday, May 10th, 2021, St. Johns County Sheriff's Office publicly announced that they had arrested Tristyn's 14-year-old school peer, Aiden Fucci, for second-degree murder in relation to her death. Aiden Fucci had been booked as a juvenile at St. John County Sheriff's Office at 3:33 a.m. on the early morning of May 10th. His charge at this time was murder, dangerous, depraved, without premeditation, which is second-degree murder. Grief counselors were immediately sent to Tristyn and Aiden's school, so sent to Patriot Oaks Academy to help students cope with the arrest and the murder of their peer. On May 11th, the Tuesday of that week, Aiden made his first court appearance via Zoom before Judge Richard Orfinger, who found that there was probable cause to believe that Aiden committed the crime that he was charged for. Judge Orfinger then ordered that Aiden be, quote, detained by the Department of Juvenile Justice in secure detention for 21 days or until further order of the court. So he was essentially being held as the investigation continued and other evidence was being uncovered. Aiden's parents, Jason and Crystal, were also present during this Zoom court appearance, and they were ordered to pay $5 per day for each day that Aiden spent in the juvenile detention center, and notified that they would incur any costs if Aiden needed any medical attention or treatment during his stay at the juvenile center. They agreed to these terms. In the meantime, vigils and other events were being held in Tristan Bailey's honor and memory. A celebration of life for Tristyn was live streamed on May 19th, 2021, where many of her loved ones spoke, including all 6 of her family members. This event is where I got most of the information about Tristyn's life and who Tristyn was before her death. Mourners wore white and aqua, which were Tristyn's favorite colors in her memory. In the days after Tristyn's murder, a medical examiner completed an autopsy on Tristyn Bailey. They determined that Tristyn's cause of death was sharp force trauma by stabbing, and that the manner of death was homicide in this case. The ME found 114 distinct stab wounds on Tristyn's body, 49 of which were said to be defensive wounds to her arms, hands, and head, meaning that Tristyn had really fought hard for her life in her final moments. The tip of the knife that was later proved to be the knife used to murder Tristyn was found recovered in her scalp by the ME, meaning that the stabbing was so vicious that it broke the knife, and it seemed that the only reason that Aiden allegedly, or her attacker allegedly, stopped stabbing Tristyn was because the knife broke. Like, the attack may have continued had the knife not broken. An extensive search was then done to the area where Tristyn's body was found, including the retention pond. They recovered the rest of the knife, which had its tip broken off in the pond. Aiden's next court appearance was held on May 27th, 2021, where he went before a grand jury to receive his indictment. The grand jury, after being presented with the evidence in this case, decided to indict Aiden Fucci on a charge of first-degree premeditated murder and determined that he would be tried as an adult in this case. But he would not be eligible for the death penalty because of his young age, which is still a legal practice in Florida where he lives. They ruled that he would continue to be incarcerated or held and have no bond set, so there was no way he was getting out of jail in anticipation for his trial. If Aiden had been tried as a juvenile in this case, he could have only been held until he was 21 years old, so around 7 years, and the investigators and prosecution and grand jury didn't believe that was enough time for the severity of his crime. Then the St. John's State Attorney R.J. Larissa, alongside a couple other law enforcement that were involved in investigating and prosecuting the case, held a press conference on May 27th to publicize the outcomes of Aiden Fucci's indictment and announce the new charges in the case.
An indictment against Aiden Fucci for first-degree murder involving our victim, Tristyn Bailey. Once the grand jury had done the indictment, we did a transfer order, which I believe some of the folks in the media had already gotten a hold of, transferring the case from juvenile court to adult court. The indictment is the triggering document which signals and executes the move into the adult court system. So Aiden Fucci will be tried as an adult in St. Johns County for first-degree murder.
During this press conference, the state attorney gave even more details about this case, including that Aiden's DNA had been found on Tristyn's body during her autopsy, and that Tristyn's DNA was found to be on Aiden's alleged knife blade, shoes, and t-shirt. The shoes and t-shirt had been recovered when they did this, or when they executed the search warrant on Crystal Smith's house. R.J. Larissa also established why the grand jury decided to charge Aiden with premeditated first-degree murder. They said that prior to Tristyn's death, Aiden had told more than one of his friends that he wanted to murder someone, though he didn't specify who he wanted to victimize. He said that he would do it by, quote, taking them into the woods and stabbing them, which is exactly what happened in Tristyn's case. His friends never reported these threats to any authority figures such as parents, police, or teachers. Larissa said that these threats prior to Tristyn's death, alongside the sheer number of stab wounds that Tristyn had to endure, proved premeditation in this case. Aiden's friends also told police that Aiden did indeed carry a knife on on him often, and that the knife recovered from the retention pond and Tristyn's scalp did indeed belong to Aiden. During the Q&A period of the press conference, Larissa clarified that Aiden had no previous juvenile charges or record prior to the murder of Tristyn Bailey, and that he hadn't been diagnosed with any mental health issues or illnesses prior to the murder and had never sought or gone to any sort of mental health counseling. There were a lot of questions asked by reporters that couldn't be answered by the state attorney at this time because the case is still actively being investigated, including whether or not Tristyn had been sexually assaulted, though it is worth keeping in mind that her body was apparently found fully clothed. They couldn't answer if the crime was sexually motivated, and they didn't expand on Aiden's history at school or at home. Another update in the case came just last week when Aiden's mother, Crystal Smith, was charged with evidence tampering. She voluntarily turned herself into St. John County Sheriff's Department and was booked for this crime or this charge on June 5th, 2021. She was released the same day after posting the money needed for her bond, which was set at $25,000. In her arrest warrant that has been made public by now, it stated that on May 9th at 12:55 p.m., just after Aiden had voluntarily gone to be booked with the police, Crystal was seen on her home's own security cameras retrieving a pair of blue jeans from Aiden's room, then taking the jeans to the adjacent bathroom where she scrubbed the jeans in the sink for several minutes. There was apparently someone else present in the home at this time that was also caught on footage, but it hasn't been publicly identified who this other person was. Crystal had scrubbed the jeans in the sink. She went to the master bedroom. The other person was present in the master bedroom, and they were both seen on the security camera inspecting the jeans. Crystal then put the damp jeans back into Aiden's bedroom at 1:28 p.m. The witness that was present in the house with Crystal stated that they had seen Aiden wearing those jeans when he left the night before around 8 p.m. or when they had seen him the night before at 8 p.m. on May 8th. It is also believed that these are the jeans that Aiden was wearing when he was with Tristyn early on May 9th, and that he had still been wearing them when he returned home. These jeans were also later recovered by authorities during their search of Crystal's house, and they tested positive for the presence of blood. That is where the present case of the murder of Tristyn Bailey currently ends and currently is at in the investigation. There are still many questions that remain for the public that I also have, including the nature of the relationship between Tristyn and Aiden and what exactly happened or occurred during that night and during the murder. I will post updates either below in the description or comments about this case as they appear or are given to the public, or I will do an update video further down the road if there is enough information that it requires that. This is an extremely tragic and devastating case, and my heart goes out to Tristyn's family, the Bailey 7. They have shown a lot of grace and courage throughout this case. I hope that Tristyn will get the justice that she deserves. It is clear to me and many others that she was a light in her family's life, in her family and friends' life, and if she had gone on to live, or if she had the time, she would have done a lot of great things in her life and possibly helped a lot of other people. But her life was tragically cut short by the selfish and evil acts of Aiden Fucci that we don't explicitly know the motive of right now, but it seems to me that he just wanted to kill someone. Please let me know your thoughts on this case. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you next time.